best branch, veteran, and federal career trailblazer who helped over 500 veterans land jobs across government agencies. After 24 years of military service, Brock successfully transitioned to federal civilian roles, then turned around to help other veterans do exactly the same. He is a champion, the Grand Master, the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the SkillBridge program. He is the go-to mentor for anyone navigating the complex world of federal hiring. Brock is here today not just to share his story, but also to break down the real-world strategies turning our military experiences into federal employment success. And I wish when I got out 10 years ago, I met Brock because it probably would have made my life a heck of a lot easier. Brock, welcome back. We greatly appreciate your time. Let's give Brock a round of applause, please. I don't see it, but there they are. There they are.
Let's give Clay a round of applause for that awesome intro.
No,
I know.
strictly.
I'm waiting for this guy to come on the screen. I don't know where he is.
I like so you know how Green Berets are. We like to sit in the background and do things quietly. But Brock, it's a pleasure actually to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you, and it's nice to actually be able to chat with you. So first thing I always like to ask everyone who's coming into a connection class whenever I'm facilitating is you are a true blue hero. Pretend you are a Marvel or a DC character. Tell us your origin story. What was your life before the Army? What was your Army career like? And then what got you, how'd you get out and how'd you get into federal service?
Oh, like probably a lot of those on this call. My life before the Army was high school. So that was pretty much it. I joined the Army at 17. Is 11 X-ray because you join 11 X-ray and they'll send you to airborne school and Ranger and all this really cool stuff, and they ended up sticking me in a Bradley. So, but I don't complain. I actually like the Bradley weapon system. It's definitely an infantry weapon system, a weapon platform. Anything can kill anything on the battlefield can kill you. So you have to use you're in a tank, but you have to use the terrain to maneuver and use it for cover. So it worked. And I liked being able to carry a 25 millimeter chain gun and two-tow missiles to deal with my problems. That was always fun. So fast forward, I got out, joined the National Guard, deployed a couple times, got blown up, decided to stay in active duty uniform after that, became an officer, aide de camp, military police, company commander. And then for some reason, I decided to go administration. Went the administrative route, was a battalion S1, battalion operations, brigade assistant S3, and then I retired as a brigade S1 for the most active National Guard brigade in the California National Guard. Transitioning out as I was moving towards my trajectory, I decided to pull ripcord after closing on 24 years of service. I started looking at the SkillBridge program. In the Guard at the time in the early 2020s, late 2000 teens, that the National Guard and the AGR program didn't really know about the SkillBridge too much. There was just this, every now and then you'd hear this person got out early and got to go intern for somewhere and got paid. So I was like, oh, I need to look into this. So looking into it, I started researching it and applying and getting myself prepared on what I needed to do. During that transition, I connected with a small federal organization called the Federal Executive Boards. You don't need to look them up; they don't exist anymore, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But part of that organization's mandate is to make government more effective, more efficient, and to bring in programs and to learn about programs and share those programs. So working through them, I helped them out with a couple of things. Connected at the height of the COVID, the Coast Guard cutters and Coast Guard base Alameda couldn't deploy because they needed multiple quick turnaround COVID tests. At the time, those quick tests didn't exist. The only people that were doing the tests were the California National Guard with their civil support teams. I was able to connect the two because I knew the commander. So that was kind of getting in good, networking squared. And I was working with another federal contractor with the Department of Energy on a SkillBridge program. That program fell through. So I said, hey, what about you guys? You guys interested in learning about SkillBridge? And they ended up accepting it. And so I did a 6-month SkillBridge internship with the San Francisco Federal Executive Board, where I had an in-depth immersion not just to a single federal agency, but all of them, because that's what the federal executive boards did. They worked across federal agencies and outside federal boundaries. And as I was progressing towards my retirement, I decided, hey, I took a really long, hard look at what my future held, what my requirements were, and what my qualifications were, and just the differences between corporate and, at the time, federal hiring. The federal resume used to be crazy long. It was really in depth. It was really focused, which kind of scratched me where I itch because I'm very detail oriented. So I decided to focus strictly on federal hiring and just put all my eggs in that basket. And it turns out that was the right answer. So fast forward, I retired in March of 2021, and 24 days later, no fault or anything, I was hired. I was actually hired a week before that, but there were some salary negotiations that I had to wait on. And I began work with the Environmental Protection Agency on April 24th. So I was only technically unemployed for 24 days before I started my federal career. Moving on, EPA was great, loved it, wanted bigger and better things. The deputy director position with the federal executive board came up. I applied and got it. Then I spent the next 3 years as the deputy director of the San Francisco Federal Executive Board. And then when a national realignment of our program took place, I was shifted focus up to Portland, specifically the Portland, Oregon Federal Executive Board. But because of all my successes with the San Francisco Federal Executive Board, in getting veterans hired and getting military spouses hired, I was designated as the regional veterans employment coordinator for the Western United States. So with that, I did what federal hiring, I assisted federal agencies in hiring, worked with federal agencies, most federal agencies that have skill bridge programs right now, I assisted in developing. And then came to the end, the new administration came in. My agency was founded by presidential proclamation and was terminated just as easy. So as of last week, or as of October 1st, I am no longer a federal employee. I currently work for a state veterans employment program called Work for Warriors, and am their national lead for their national coalition for advocating for funding with Congress and our elected representatives. But I still keep my ear to the ground as far as federal hiring goes. Quick show of hands who have seen a 2-page federal resume template running around, say, either Facebook or LinkedIn.
I would say very recently I saw one.
If you've seen it, and a quick little way to discern whether it's mine or not is, I think the first employer is just something, whatever, but the boss is Mia Boss, MIABOSS. That's how you know it's mine. It's been shared by Homeland Security Investigations, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Army Civilian Service. So it's out there. So I still know. So I still have the ear of multiple federal agencies and multiple federal agency folks. I still am looking to get back into the federal service eventually when something pops up. Unfortunately, without remote positions and the fact the federal government's so DC centric, those opportunities are fewer and farther between. And yeah, if they're listening to me right now, hey, I hope I say something that makes them want to pick me back up, because hey, how hard, if you don't understand how hard it is to get an outstanding in the federal government, I got 2 in a row. So yeah, there you go. That brings us to today. I continue to help veterans, transitioning service members. Specifically, our program is focused on employment for current National Guard members and members of the reserves, making sure that, because if they're not employed, they can't go to training. If they can't go to training, they can't be the lethal warfighters that our country needs. So that's what I'm working on right now, and that's why I'm working on advocacy for the program funding. But I still make sure to make time for opportunities like this. I still volunteer. I do resume reviews, and then I translate. One of the tricks I've learned is thinking outside the box. To translate military skills into things that civilian employers understand, no matter what you did, no matter how, what job you did, whatever more combat centric occupation you held, I guarantee I can translate it or help you translate it into terms that civilian employers understand. For instance, close air support is nothing more than customer service. So there you go.
I've actually been saying that for a long time for sure. And as someone who, was raised in Ranger Battalion and then moved to Special Forces, it definitely is a challenge for sure. Translating all of that, and especially now with the two pager that's floating around. I want to pick your brain a little bit. When you were transitioning out, you retired, you're getting into federal service. What was the biggest challenge with your transition, and how did you overcome it?
To be honest, the biggest challenge I had was understanding that while veterans preference is great, I'd rather have it than not have it. Many people on here can probably, nod to this, is during the transition process, during the TAP classes, I was told that veterans preference when it came to federal hiring was the silver bullet. I've got veterans preference, I'm going to get hired. I've got veterans preference, I'm going to get hired. I was hired or transferred within the federal government. It's complicated, but basically 4 times. I had to apply to a job 4 times for either initial hire or promotion. Veterans preference was never taken into account once because the levels I was working at, the levels I was applying to, and because some jobs I was applying in under what they call the Veterans Employment Opportunity Act. It's a act that allows veterans to apply to jobs that are only open to current federal employees. But reading into the act, veterans preference is not taken into account. So, not to humble brag, my first federal job, it was too high a grade, so I didn't qualify for the veterans recruitment appointment. I wasn't a veteran yet, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, because I hadn't gotten my 30% or more disability rating yet. I didn't know anything about the Schedule A, which I'll talk about here shortly. So I applied and got my first federal job based on the strength of my resume and my interview alone. So that, and not knowing that information, not having that information prior to, was an eye opener for me.
That's biggest thing. Everyone here really does hammer down on what do we always say to you guys? 1000%. It's the resume, it's your interviewing skills, everything like that. We were actually talking about it earlier this morning with Ernest Smith about, making sure that you have that clean resume and that you're not sitting there highlighting things to maybe you might be distracting or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about Schedule A 1000% because I want to hear your what you have to say about it for sure.
So Schedule A, so taking a step back, veterans preference is one thing. Veterans preference and special hiring authorities are two separate things. This is one of the things during my classes that I used to give that I made sure to hit on big time. While veterans preference, just to give a quick synopsis on that, is veterans preference gives you either 0, 5, or 10 points preference in the hiring when they do use a numeric system to rate and grade your resume. Say they grade it on a 0 to 100 points. Your resume gets a 75, but you're a 10-point preference eligible veteran. So now that 75 bumps you up to 85. So any of those resumes that were 76, 77, 80, you now beat them out. You have preference to be hired for them. That's cool. That's great. That's grand. But often the numbers are easily fudged. We'll just say that. I'm not saying they are. I'm not saying they do. They just can be. So looking at the other side of the thing are the veteran special hiring authorities. When you look on USAJobs, they're usually those little symbols, those colored symbols. So knowing what those are and knowing how to leverage those for your particular background or your particular skills are absolutely something I recommend you look into, and I can absolutely help you understand. So a couple of those special hiring authorities specifically for veterans are great. They're called non-competitive special hiring authorities, which allow agencies to hire you non-competitively as long as you meet the minimum qualifications for the job. Now, there's fewer nowadays, but a year ago, every couple of days, I'd share a off the USA, not on USAJobs job application. Apply directly to this recruiter, apply directly to this hiring manager. And using one of these non-competitive special hiring authorities allows those hiring managers to hire you, but you have to be eligible for them. So the big ones are the VRA, Veterans Recruitment Appointment. It's the general, you are a veteran, you can be hired so long as you served 3 years and got out on our great. The limitation with this non-competitive special hiring authority is limited to GS11 and below. Not a bad thing. GS11 is a good gig, but again, GS11 positions and below. The really good one for veterans is the 30% or more disabled veteran special hiring authority. It allows an agency to hire you up to GS 15 non-competitively, so long as you meet the minimum qualifications. That's great. But as a transitioning service member, still on Title 10, still on active duty orders, you will not get your VA disability rating until you're off of active duty. So not when you're applying to those federal jobs up to 120 days leading up to your retirement or separation. Okay, now what? Looking into it, I didn't really look into the Schedule A at first because the Schedule A, the actual terminology for the Schedule A is individuals with severe physical disabilities, mental disabilities, or psychological disabilities, or some combination of those, right? And I'm not disabled. I got some back issues and my knees are jacked and I got a new shoulder, maybe a little more shrapnel than I care to admit, but I'm not disabled, right? So, in the same thing, even, my mild diagnosis of PTSD, I'm not severely mentally disabled or psychologically disabled. So I didn't even think about it during my lead up and exit from the military. However, sitting down and actually looking at the Schedule A, what it entails, what makes you eligible for it, that's when it kind of opened my eyes. Here's the reason why. The VA disability rating has to do with your VA compensation. It has to do with disabilities that you either incurred on active duty or were secondary to your active duty. And again, you don't get that until you're out of the service. Schedule A, like the 30% or more, allows you to be hired non-competitively to a federal agency up to GS 15, so long as you meet the minimum qualifications. Here's a couple of points on that. And you can apply to law enforcement positions utilizing the Schedule A, so long as whatever the underlying condition you have that Schedule A for does not limit your ability to pass a psychological or physical evaluation. Oh, done. So what makes you eligible for Schedule A? If you look, there's a form called the SF-256. If someone wants to drop that link in the chat, I'd appreciate it. SF-256 is just an OPM form. It's the the self-selection of disability form for the Office of Personnel Management. Unless you work for OPM, you'll never see this form. However, the list of disabilities and conditions on that form, if you have something diagnosed in your medical record, you're probably eligible for Schedule A. Now, it does include the big ones, the big targeted ones: deafness, hearing loss, dwarfism, amputations, things like that. But it also includes things like irritable bowel syndrome, GERD, anxiety, depression, PTSD. There's a whole list. I mean, alcoholism, diabetes. There's a whole list of information on there. So if you have a diagnosed medical condition that's on that SF-256, you're probably eligible for Schedule A. I say this for a couple of reasons. First, it has nothing to do with your service or service-connected disabilities. So if you have asthma from when you were a kid, or maybe something happened to you while you're on active duty, but it's not service connected, but it's still a condition that's listed, absolutely you're eligible. Here's the other thing is, you can be on active duty and get the Schedule A, whereas the 30% or more disabled veteran, you won't get until you're out. So you absolutely want to utilize that Schedule A. I ended up going to war, almost got a colonel relieved at a military treatment facility because they refused to do it, transitioning and retiring soldiers. I'm the saltiest O3E, retired O3E you ever met. I went and stood on a general's desk. I'm like, hey, you gave this colonel an order. He's telling you to go F yourself. So I'm here to tell you that he told you to go F yourself. So you're going to fix this? So he said, I'm on it. I ended up with 3 soldiers that day with their Schedule A letters that weren't going to get it otherwise. And how many people had come through that military treatment facility asking for the Schedule A, and those doctors or those medical professionals were like, no, we're not going to do it. I've since cleaned up Schedule A a couple times with Balboa, David Grant Medical Center, and a couple others back east. So the Schedule A is great. Here's another reason the Schedule A is great. So when you do apply, remember I said all those little symbols, you want to apply using all the special hiring authorities that you're eligible for. Think of all those special hiring authorities as also separate baskets, right, that your resume goes into if you're eligible. A federal agency does not have to take the best candidate from all of those baskets. To be honest, we have a quota system. Sometimes they want veterans, sometimes they want military spouses, sometimes they want other things. So sometimes they will focus on that basket that they want to increase their numbers in. So for instance, working in California, I'll be open and honest, Some agencies have a bias against veterans. They don't want to hire us. They don't think we're a good fit for their corporate culture, their agency culture. EPA, excuse me, it's dusty. Um, but but okay, fine. There are other agencies, and this is more often than not what it is. Other agencies like veterans, like hiring veterans, but they look at their numbers, they've met their numbers of whatever it is, 30%, 15, 20% of veterans hire. So they start looking at these other baskets, whether it's military spouses, whether it's whether it's recent graduates. The one group that I worked with across, or excuse me, the one group of individuals that no agency I ever worked with ever met their quota with was individuals with disability, was the Schedule A hires. So utilizing the Schedule A, utilizing your 30% of disability, utilizing your VRA, utilizing the recent graduate, absolutely utilize those. You utilize those across the board if you can, but use them all if you can. Get them and use them all if you can. And that just increases your opportunity to be hired.
That's absolutely perfect. And you actually brought up something that is near and dear to my heart. And I do harp on everyone here in the class on this all the time is help. You've helped veterans. I've helped veterans navigate the VA claims process. Why is getting your documentation, your claims in order so important before you leave active duty? I want to get your hard 2 cents, sir.
Oh, shifting gears, great. No worries. And I see a couple of questions in the chat
Yeah,
regarding the Schedule A and federal employment. I definitely want to get to those. But no,
we'll
this is
circle
another
back,
one.
but it's connected. Yeah.
So honestly, up front, there's a lot that you need to understand regarding the VA claims process. Not every condition, just because you got it, there's an old misconception when I got out. Oh, it happened while you were on active duty, so it's automatically covered. Incorrect. Oh, by the way, you're working with a VSO, so you're automatically going to get good to go. So are there any Title 32 AGRs on the call? You're
I
not.
don't think so, to be
So,
honest with
so
you.
okay, we got
Well, it
one.
looks like we
Even
have one.
even with
Yeah.
yeah, even with the Title 10 folks, don't assume your DD 214 is going to make it to the VA. That's number one. Just assume, do
100%.
not
Yeah.
assume it. Remember, no one cares about your VA disability claim more than you. Not the VSO, not your VA doctors, not the benefits folks that they send you to. No one cares about that claim more than you. And I am saying this because I mistakenly put my information and gave information to a VSO, a county VSO, who ghosted me, who ended up being fired, and then they never transferred my case over. Oh, by the way, my DD 214 never got to the VA because I was working through the VSO. Oh, by the way, my initial claim for multiple injuries, multiple conditions that I still suffer from and take medications for, shrapnel from a Purple Heart, PTSD, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was rated at 30. I was rated at 30% right out the door. Great for hiring purposes, but I knew I would be more than that. Thankfully, having my background, really administrative, medical documentation, 6 months later, I was able to increase it to 100%. So here's what you do for those of you that are transitioning out. Make sure your paperwork's right. Every little ache, pain, the one that you've been ignoring for the past 20 years, starts being seen. If you're not being seen for a condition you have, why are we going to compensate you for it? If you're not taking medication or treatment for the condition you have, don't expect to be compensated for it. The other thing, I didn't realize this until a partner of mine went through the VSR program,
Yep.
rating service
Yep.
representative. So they were parked on the other side of the table from where I'm sitting right now, going through their training. So I got to listen to the entire program on training program that was going on with them. So I understood the background of it. Be vulnerable, be upfront. Don't just say, I have this condition and it hurts. How badly does it hurt? How badly did it affect your life? There's a term that I like to say is a VA claim is a three-legged stool that can't stand with any of those three legs missing. The first thing is, did something happen to you on active duty? That's number one. Is that something still affecting you? That's number two. That basically gets you the zero rating. That's okay. That's service connected. Cool. The third one that is the one that actually determines what your rating will be is, how is that condition still affecting or negatively affecting your life? This is where buddy letters and lay statements come in. I cannot tell you the importance of these. one of the little interesting tidbits I learned from the VSR training is a well-written, well-crafted lay statement has as much force and has as much input to a VA claim as a doctor's note. So we're talking spouses, children, family members, friends. I'm looking at Jordan just as a name. I'm just pulling, that's Jordan Mash. I'm just pulling you because you're the name I looked up at. So Jordan was in the military. He's married. He's in the military. Him and his wife or partner used to like going hiking, and that was their thing. That's what they did to be together. That's what they did to be bonded. That's what they did to, continue to, keep that love going. Jordan hurt himself, busted his knee up, messed his back up real bad. He can no longer go hiking. That's starting to negatively affect his relationship. That's starting to cause increased depression. That's not causing depression and anxiety in Jordan, but it's also causing anxiety and issues in his marriage, right? Being that detailed in a buddy statement can mean the difference between a 20% rating and a 60% rating. So be open, be vulnerable, and get those family members, get those people that know you before and the ones that know you after. There are the big ones, even the ones that knew you after. It's like, hey, he was fine when he got out. He started limping. He played about his knee. Even those add credence and add ammunition to your disability claim that can increase your rating. Because again, your VA disability rating isn't just something happened to you in the military and that something still hurts you. It's how bad is it hurting you? How bad and negatively is it affecting your life? That's the one that actually determines what your rating level is.
There's the reason why I always tell you guys, pay attention when you're going to your CMP exams and everything like that, 1000%. I'm going to pull some questions up from the chat. And I'm going to sit there and go to my Red Horse brother who works with us here, James. Do you have any insight about the intern program with federal service?
Intern or interim? I'm not sure what that is.
Intern. James, if you're on, can you pop on audio and ask that question?
Because there's a couple there.
The intern programs. So I'm looking specifically at acquisitions.
Oh, in general? Okay, so
Yeah.
there's 3 intern programs that I've helped a couple agencies put together. 2 of them are for active duty, and there's actually one through the VA for veterans. So if anybody veterans are on the call, the 2 specific, and now all these programs aren't specifically to the federal government, but federal agencies do have them. We've all heard SkillBridge. SkillBridge is one of them. Transitioning service members up to 180 days, but it's like dialed down to 90 now for some, which just sucks, but it is what it is. Same with Operation Warfighter, wounded, ill, infirm that are separating for the service. Great programs. Recommended if you're active duty, get on them, try to get with them, look for, federal opportunities. The big ones right now, CBP is still hiring, still has SkillBridge opportunities. Buddy of mine, with CISA had just posted one for the Bay Area, for San Francisco Bay Area, for a SkillBridge opportunity. So they're out there. They're absolutely out there. The other one for the veterans, those who are already out of the service, look into your VRNE program, because under the VRNE, the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program, there is an option for both federal, local government, which is called the non-paid work experience program, and then other internship programs that you can participate in, be paid for, be compensated for while you're going through the internship. Oh, by the way, when you're done with that internship, you're now eligible for another special hiring authority that federal agency can pick you up with. So just look into those. Those are the ones I know of. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I appreciate it.
James is my favorite engineer guy. So one question for you that I drummed up. Now, see, we've already kind of talked about that. How can veterans use the SkillBridge or their CSP program to position themselves better for federal employment? Actually, pause that. Forget my question. Stephen, hand up. Why don't you have the floor, sir? Go ahead. Stephen?
Bueller?
Oh, all right. Darius, go ahead, sir.
So I had a question about the buddy letters. I had a bunch of them ginned up, and I took them with me to my general. Like, they didn't. She didn't. She didn't want them. So is that something that you have for that, or do you upload those yourself on a portal for everybody else?
I'm not really sure what you're referring to. Schedule A letter is just a letter. It doesn't say anything is
Um,
wrong. It just
the
says you're
the
eligible.
buddy letters for your
Oh, buddy letter.
conditions.
Disability
Gotcha.
rating. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so for the disability rating, if you're working through your VSO, working through a third party to help you submit it, they submit it with it. If you're working yourself through the benefits, it's been a minute since I've done it, but the online, I do know that the VA has gotten very good about you putting your own information in, you're submitting your own claims, and it's pretty cool. I uploaded my own directly there. After the VSO fiasco, I ended up putting all the information in myself, utilizing the system, and it ended up coming back. Like I said, it took 6 months to go from the initial rating of, like I said, 30 or 40% to 100%. So you can go through that process and just go directly and submit it directly to them.
Gotcha. Because I went through, I think it was Leidos QTC, and they had their own portal. And there was, but on the VA's website, when you're checking your claim status, they do have like a section, so you said to upload your own documents. But I had the buddy statements, but she didn't seem to care about them. It seemed like they were just going over like whatever they had for the agenda to clarify, and like that was it.
Yeah, and again, it's your claim. Hey, I want this included. This is my information. I want this included in my record. You're submitting it to the VA. This needs to be as part of that packet. So be forceful, advocate for yourself. And again, that's a hard lesson I learned because I didn't. So that, I'm not trying to, sound bad to you. It's just that I had to learn it the hard way, and that's why I make sure you got to advocate for yourself, man.
Copy that. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Steven, you're back. The floor is yours, sir.
Sorry about that. Zoom decided to wanted to close out on me. Just a quick opinion. Just a little coming up on about 120 days out from our retirement. I have a back procedure in late November. Would you recommend filing my claim now or waiting until the back procedure is complete, or file now and do an amendment?
Well, you can always add more. If you have additional conditions, you can always add more information to your claim. If you hit the 6 month mark to do your submission, submit with what you have, and then submit with what you have when you have more stuff. It's the same. It would be the same thing if you retired and all of a sudden you got cancer for cancer. You got cancer for something that could be directly tied back to something in your service. Right. I already have a disability rating, but I'm going to make sure that's been submitted. That's the other thing for those of you that do get out or are out and have a disability claim of less than 100%. If you go through a major surgery for a service connected condition, make sure you file that as well. Because even if that condition, even once you're done, once you're healed, once you're better, you'll still be at 60, 70%. While you're recuperating during that condition for 6 months, 8 months, a year, you can be, not always, but you can be bumped to 100% rating for that period of time, a temporary 100% rating for that period of time. So you can still be pulling in that little bit of extra income to help offset any earnings you're missing because you'll be out of work.
Makes sense to everyone? Darius, did you have a second question, or okay, you just disappeared from my screen. So Adrian, I'm going to give you the floor. Go ahead. Then I have a question. Circle back.
Hey, how you doing? So I got two questions. So one of the question is, when I was on the ship, I was working in hazmat for 5 years, and I read something. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I read that if you work in hazmat environment, you can claim that or something like that. I don't know if that's true.
It's working around various the PACT Act is one of those. If you've worked around burn pits, poisonous areas, so that look into the PACT Act. Another thing you want to do, and my uncle has experienced this. He wasn't in the military, but he worked at a DoD Department of Energy contractor. One thing you can do, and I would do while you're young, and probably, are you still in the service?
I get it on January.
So you probably still have contacts with those that were in the area with you. Get a list of all the chemicals that you worked with on a regular basis. Get a list of the floor cleaner that you worked with. So how many people on this call has used that silica crap on the motor pool floor to help pick up oil? That
Oh
stuff is
God.
poison,
Yeah.
right? So if you can get a letter, get it documented through number of people that said, I use this on a regular basis. I had my hands in JP8. I had my, I routinely worked around these sorts of solvents, of these sorts of chemicals. I helped a Vietnam veteran. I was able to service connect a lung issue and a cancer issue with a Vietnam veteran that never left the United States, but he had documented proof that he cleaned C-130s that carried Agent Orange, right? So
Okay.
it's how you come in contact with that stuff. And then the flip side is another thing I didn't mention is if you have a medical professional, you can look into nexus letters for those things that maybe aren't directly service connected. And those are big for like our older era vets, the vets from, when I started when everything was paper based and half that stuff is gone. Um, so those are other methods and means of getting your documentation in order and building the case for a claim that says, hey, not only did you do something, not only are you affected by something, but here's all the case law and evidence that says that something that I was involved with is what's giving me whatever condition I have. I'm gonna throw some PHI at you guys. I recently was diagnosed. Well, recently, it was as of April. In April, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. Sorry, I had a little trauma dump on you. Right. I'm 47 years old. I'm well outside the range of that particular type of cancer. So it was determined that more likely than not, because of my age, because of my testosterone levels, because of my work history, it was environmental. What does that mean? That means the Army owns it. And because I did the letter, I had the documentation, I looked at the case law, I looked at all of the solvents and water and all these things that I was subjected to and exposed to over my military career. The VA is like, yeah, more likely than not, because that's all you need. You need to prove 51% that more likely than not, or most likely caused by your service, more likely than not caused by your service. So that's
Okay.
what you're looking for. You're looking for that 51%. You just need to convince the CMP examiner and the VA that there's that 51% chance that it was caused by your service. And that's how you do it. You have the evidence. They're not going to know where you served. They're not going to care where you served. You could have served on the moon, but hey, they're going to assume you were in a bubble suit and everything else. You weren't exposed to radiation. You weren't exposed to all this other stuff. So unless you tell them, they're going to assume the negative, assume that you didn't, assume that you weren't. It's not, and that's not necessarily, and I don't want to badmouth the VA. It's actually, VA is actually okay. It does suck for some things, but they're trying their best to do certain other things. But they also need to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. They're just not going to fling money at you just because you say, you got a hangnail and want 100%. You actually have to prove, okay, how is that hangnail service connected and how is it still affecting you? And is it the taxpayer's problem? So if you look at things through that try to look at things through that lens, it does make the wait a little easier. They're making sure you're good to go so they don't let other people who don't deserve the compensation getting through and taking the taxpayer money.
Okay. So basically, I have to go to the ship to get that letter, or just to the Green Tech in, let's say, Norfolk.
So there's a couple ways to do this. The more official the letter, the better. So, for instance, if I write myself a letter, I was exposed. So, being active duty National Guard, I all my National Guard service counts towards my VA disability claim, which is not always the case if you're National Guard. But I responded to a couple fires. I was in some nasty stuff. I got smoke inhalation. I got all this nasty stuff. So if I wrote a letter that said, yes, I was exposed to all this stuff. All right, that's a letter. That's all right, cool. I got with my state headquarters and got them their medical whatever office. So I went as high as I could to have them issue a letter to all of my personnel that said you were exposed to smoke inhalation, building fires that had, contaminants, this. The higher you can go, the more official letter you can get, the more weight it will give you. At a minimum, I recommend you write a letter says I was exposed to these different chemicals in this job, doing these things, doing these tasks. At a minimum, you want to include that letter. Now, if you can get that letter endorsed by your chain of command, all the better. If you can get that letter endorsed by the medical personnel on your ship, all the better. But at a minimum, you at least want to include that you were exposed, that you know you were exposed to these certain agents, these certain chemicals, and make sure that's part of your claim at a minimum.
Okay, so tomorrow basically I have my claim with the VSO. So how long is it gonna take after you do the claim
Well,
to the appointment
they
for
they
the
won't do anything. They won't do well. The BD, or excuse me, the CMP claims, those types of things, those will come within weeks or months, depending on how fast they can schedule them. But your claim will not come until you're out of the service. Your first claim will not come until you're out of the service, and
Okay,
probably up to 45 days.
okay, yeah,
Even benefits upon discharge, it still takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days to kick in.
okay, so basically after I do my claim, then the CMP, after that, for compensation, how long is it gonna take for receive a letter saying you're gonna get this compensation?
Again, it could be weeks, it could be months. I can't tell you. It depends on the caseload. It depends on who you go through. Depends on how complicated your case is. It's case by case. The book answer is 90 days.
Okay, all right.
Adrian, so I want to give you my 2 cents. When I was laid up in Walter Reed for 6 months, it took 240 days while I was still in the hospital, and technically a civilian at that point. But anyways, Kamar, why don't you go ahead and ask your question? We're kind of coming short on time. I do want to circle back about a federal agency's question for you, but Kamar, go ahead.
Hi. So my question is, while I was doing my CMPs, one of my exams, they were supposed to reschedule it, and then they canceled it and said they'll get back to me. But then when I checked my status today, it says it's in step 5 where they're making a decision. I was gonna call, but I thought maybe the best thing to do is wait to see what the percentage comes out to, and then in the future, like you say, I could add whatever they didn't put on it or that test that they cancel. Is that the right way to go about it?
That's a way to go about it. And here's the thing people need to understand too. Um, First thing, and I'm a huge personal responsibility guy, and understand not everybody's life circumstances are the same. As you're transitioning out of service, you're getting to the point where you're out of the service. You should not have to rely on your VA disability level, right? Get yourself to a point where you've got a job, where you're retired, doing something. Don't rely on that, because it could be anywhere from 10% to 100%. It can be 0% to 100% getting out. There's no way to understand that. The only way you will understand what your VA disability rating is going to be right out of the boat is if you're medically separated and they give you a rating right then and there. So that's my recommendation. Have savings, have some money saved up, because like Clay said, it took him over 200 days to get his claim, done and everything else.
And I was a
My,
med board. And I was
yeah.
a med board, guys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I literally discharged out of the hospital. I was a med board, and that's how long it took.
Oh,
So
so no, it's not about depending on it. I was just asking, like, should I call them to go back to step 3, or just wait to see what it works out to before I try to add the things they didn't look at then?
So there's a couple things for that. I can't tell you what to do, what your
Yep.
threshold is, but I can tell you what the process. By waiting, by calling them and kind of stopping the process, I don't know what that would do. But by waiting, when you get your claim back, they do a really good job of that. You'll just get this thick packet of information. This is, you submitted a claim for plantar fasciitis, right? This is why we approved it. This is why we deferred it. This is why we denied it. And then they will explain to you why they did that. Now that's giving you, okay, now I need more information on this. I need to focus on buddy letters. I need to focus on more information showing how this is service connected. I need to try and find a nexus letter to try and get it service connected. They give you the information. It's like, they will say, we deferred this because you lacked evidence. We're waiting on more evidence. We denied it because there's not insufficient evidence for the claim. Just because something's denied does not mean you can't submit it again with more information. So if you have the ability to wait, You can wait, and they will give you the information that you need to be able to go forward, so you're not just spinning your wheels.
Okay.
All right, I do want to sit there and break away and stop talking about it because I'm starting to have workplace PTS from talking about all this stuff with claims and everything like this. Last question that I'm going to have for you, because we are running out of time. I know right now we have some uncertainty going on with everything with the federal government, but things go back to what we think is normal. What are some overlooked federal agencies or roles that veterans should seriously consider?
That's a great question. Before I get into that, there's one question I saw that I know does come up, especially for transitioning service members, specifically retiring service members. I do want to address the 180-day restriction. The 180-day restriction only applies to the Department of Defense and doesn't apply to all Department of Defense agencies. So just be aware of that. So if you're retiring from the service, there is what they call a 180-day restriction for federal service. You need a waiver. Waivers are approved, so don't think, if the agency wants you, they'll submit a waiver for it. But also look into the agency. Some agencies, like I know, was it the Norfolk Naval Shipyards, for example? Some agencies, some locations have waivers in place, so you can go and apply to those jobs. The day you retire, the next day you can start working for one of these DoD agencies. But again, that 180-day restriction only applies to DoD, no other federal agency, and even then, only probably 60 to 75%. But only most DoD agencies and not all. So make sure you do your due diligence and check it out. Like regarding your question, honestly, I will say this, little expectation management. Now, if you've got that dream job, you want to work for the EPA, you really want to work for the DEA, you really want to work for, the defense, what is DCSA, whatever the acronym is now. If you really want to work for one of those agencies, awesome. Look at them. I would recommend this instead. Work on your resume. Focus on your skills. Focus on your achievements. Do a hard, deep dive of what you did, not what rank you were, not what position you held. What did you do? I have helped E7s get GS13 jobs based on their achievements. And I couldn't get an 04 to get past GS9 because she just would not translate her information into something that the agency was looking for. So concentrate on what you did. Concentrate on your achievements. Concentrate on your actual qualifications. Flush the rank. You're not an E7 anymore. You're not a sergeant first class. You're not a master sergeant. You're not a major. You're not a lieutenant colonel. You are what you did, not what you were. So focus on that and developing your resume. And then get on USAJobs. Create yourself a job search for the job series that you're interested in, the background that you're interested in. I mean, unless you've got a degree in biology, you probably don't need to be receiving announcements and job applications for biologists. I'm just saying. So you can actually get in there, set yourself up a announcement search that you can have sent to you. You can have updated daily. You can have emailed to you. You can have all these other things. It can be distance. It can be all this stuff. Do that. Focus on those things rather than a specific agency. Because I'll tell you right now, the hardest part about getting a federal job is getting a federal job. Once you get your foot in the door, it's easy to move around. It took me 42 days from my official offer letter to the actual start date of my federal hire for my first federal job. It took me 2 weeks from my second official offer, because I was already a federal employee, to start my next federal job. And that's just because I gave them the 2-week notice that, I was just being nice. So once you get your foot in the door, it's easy to move around. It's easy to get the training and experience you need to do something else that you want, especially for those that you want to change career fields. I was done with emergency management. I don't want to do anything with security anymore. But that's the skill set I had getting into and that's what got me into the federal government. As EPA's regional security officer, then I was able to expand that. I was able to work on those skills and qualifications that I was lacking for those other positions that I wanted. And when that position came available, I was able to apply, and I was qualified, and I was hired. So focus on what you did, what you achieved, again, not what you were, and focus less on, again, don't focus on pay either. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna think that you want that $125,000 a year GS12, GS13 job with $50,000 a year resume. Be honest with yourself, because it all depends on your resume. Your resume gets your interview gets you the job. So unless your resume just breaks down why you were the best candidate for the role, it doesn't matter what agency you apply to. It doesn't matter what special hiring authorities you have. You're not going to get hired. But again, if you're looking at getting into the federal government, get a federal job. If you can
Yep.
go low, go as low as possible, work your way up. The ones you want, especially if you have to go lower, if you maybe don't have the skill set to get a, GS 9, 11, 12, 13 job, try to get a GS 7 job that has promotional. So that it'll on the announcement, it'll say, GS 7 to 9, but then you scroll down on the right-hand column, it says promotion potential 11. What that tells you is you don't have to apply to again for another job, because the federal government's a competitive hiring process. If you get to GS 11 and it's not promotional, you're going to have to apply just like you were coming in from the outside to the public, apply for that GS 12 job. However, starting as GS 7, you see GS promotional to GS 11, you'll get promoted from GS 7 to GS 9 to GS 11. You'll be at GS 11 in 2 years. Whereas, maybe it's hard to get in as at GS 11 level. I'm gonna tell you right now, trying to get in at GS 12 or above is a nightmare and incredibly hard to do. So just food for thought.
Yep. I actually have a story on that. One of my captains on one of my ODAs actually wanted to do exactly that. He went to go work for the State Department. There were no openings at the time. He ended up going to work as a logistics program manager at FLETC down in Georgia. And he did that for a couple of years. He hated it. It was not a lot of fun for him. But ultimately what happened is that State Department role opened up. He sat there and dropped his application. FLETC knew that he wanted to go do that. And lo and behold, he got his foot in the door. And now he's enjoying time in Rome, being, I think he is the regional logistics support officer for the State Department, just because he got his foot in the door through a totally separate agency altogether. So it is totally there for sure.
That's what. Real quick, Clay. I want to address something in the chat real quick. But on that note, absolutely. Remember I said about hierarchy and baskets and all this stuff. Current federal employees are one of the highest priorities to hire. So just right off the top. So if you're a current federal employee, you're already above all the veterans that are applying from the outside, all the people from the public that are applying from the outside, all the Schedule A that are applying from the outside. You will most likely be the first basket that they look at. So just remember that once you're in the federal system, it's easy to move around. Joshua had a question, and I want to hit this. I want to stress this again. It doesn't matter what rank you were, right? Don't think, and not to throw you into the bus, Joshua. I just want to point out here. So his question was, as a Navy Chief E7, what GS level would that equate to? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about your rank. Write down what you did. Right? What did you do? What were you in charge of? How many people were you in charge of? How many programs did you work on? How many personnel did you assist? How many customers did you care for? How much budget did you oversee? How much, how much equipment? What cost of equipment did you use? What kinds of equipment did you use? So again, I know I helped an E7 who was a security forces officer or security forces professional in the Air Force. He got a GS13 job just because we were able to look at his resume, look at his background, really articulate what he did. I had another person, this 04, who was an operations officer, brigade level operations officer. She just could not articulate. She refused to articulate what she did in her resume, and she couldn't get past GS9. So just, again, don't worry about what you were, worry about what you did. Now, there are going to be those jobs that'll be like, oh, well, what were you? You need 79, blah, blah, blah. That's then. Okay, fine, whatever. But focus on what you did. What did you achieve? What was your level of authority? Because I know some lieutenant colonels who are battalion commanders who, they were in charge of, no, they weren't. They were in charge of shit, right? Whereas company commanders were in the meat. They did things. They did the stuff. They did the policy. They created what they needed to create. They did what they needed to do, and they led troops in the field. They supervised, they managed, they led. Whereas, battalion commanders, do they really create any policies? No. Their S1 creates policies, their S3 creates policies, their S4 creates policies. That's that's the information you need to put forward. That's all I
So
got
how?
far.
No. You're actually talking about something we were chatting about this
I
morning
didn't
with
mean to
Ernie.
say drop an S-bomb on you.
No. Please come on. You and I are Army, so therefore that's a comma for us. No, that was, and again, talking about this morning, folks. For those who were here when Ernie and I were chatting about resumes, right? It's translate those skills, translate those achievements, those accomplishments, those citations, those accommodations into that language to where they can 1000% understand that. So we have a couple minutes, so we are at the top of the hour. Does anybody else have any other questions for Brock? Going
Thank you, Mr.
once.
Brock. Thank you, Mr. Brock. That was some awesome info. I followed you and I'm going to be sending you a message. Thank you, sir. You're a blessing.
All right, fantastic. Brock, it's actually fantastic to actually chat with you. I've heard a lot about you, so sir, thank you very much. It's nice to have another Army guy around because we're far and few between around here with all these Air Force and Navy guys. But let's give Brock a round of applause. I see it all there. Go ahead.
I'm always looking for my next best thing. So if you guys are hiring.
You know, I'm going to keep my ear to the ground for you for sure, sir. 1000%. But Brock, thank you very much for your time. Heidi, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you're still on.
Here, but
Anybody?
Pretty sure